This is not a path of struggle. This is the path, the middle road of allowing. Angels come in all sizes and shapes and do all sorts of strange things. And we allow and we watch, and we know that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. And this means you. We are all unfolding exactly as we should. We've been given a gift here, especially this morning, a transfusion of light. Carried into the depths of the soul of our being, dropping all words and thoughts. Nothing to fix, nothing to figure out, nothing to cause to cease, nothing to cause to happen. For life is living itself regardless of what I do or don't do or think or don't think. If we want to stay in the garden, we must live a life of non-judgment, judging anything that it should be any different other than it is throwing myself out of the garden. Ising. Nothing to do but recognize the absolute presence of God in everyone and everything, moment by moment. There's no one that needs to be any further along on their spiritual unfoldment than they are. Whether I am judging my path or your path, we're the end of the road with that stuff. We investigate, can you really know? It's been 42 years since Joel left this incarnation. He certainly hasn't left consciousness and certainly hasn't left us. But we've come to a time where we must lay down the sword of judgment of anything or anyone, and this includes governments, countries, doesn't mean we don't do actions. It means we refrain from any judgment of the actions of them or myself. This is such a simple path and such a difficult path. We walk out the room and within seconds we think something should be other than it is. And this is where we lovingly, gently grab ourselves and say, ising. It no longer takes my thinking. It takes my recognition of the presence of God here now. I must come to reframe every opinion, every judgment that I have. Something to choke on, isn't it? What an order. How do we go through with that? Gently. Fall down 100,000 times. Back up. Oh, there I was again. Believing something was something other than God. I began hearing about the end of the world when I was 7. How it's all going to crash, go to hell in a handbasket. I'm hearing it again. Underlying any of that must be my ability to remove all fear that that has anything to do with me. Consciousness is, regardless of the antics of the children out there. And I say children, I don't care if they're 80 years old, 100 years old, what office they hold, what label they hold. It's all in the dream picture. And I step out of the movie and back within to I, back within to the deep silence of my peace, thy peace. Okay, God, I guess you know what you're doing here. And God just keeps loving and pouring and saying yes. And we keep breathing in and breathing out. And the universe breathes in and the universe breathes out. My job is one of surrender. Not to take a position or positionality on anything or anyone. For it is being, it is ising. It means it. Take no thought. Take no thought for what you shall eat, drink, have, not have. It doesn't mean we don't do correct actions, correct disciplines, correct behaviors, that correct meaning, not good, not evil, correct meaning what works for me. To thine own self be true. What action works for me? What takes me closer to the understanding and awareness of the presence of God, and what takes me away from it? It's very simple. What's endarkening me? What's enlightening me? Not good, not evil, and sometimes I choose the darker one. The only thing that counts are the moments that I am awake consciously. The moments I'm not are unimportant. All that matters is when I drop down deep into that sea, that well of contentment within my own being, dropping the news headings, dropping the television, dropping the family's concerns and cares, dropping it where it needs to be dropped, in the lap of understanding that what is ising. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm in somebody else's business, or I'm in my own judging it. It's the perfect little notice that I must be off in belief again. I've thrown myself out of the kingdom and out of the garden, and I'm outside the gates judging the very first sin there was, which was a belief in good or evil. The minute I go, is, allow, it's okay, nothing to do, nothing to say, nothing to fix, I'm back in the kingdom. The kingdom is within. I will never get God to activate in the lie. And what is the lie? That something is other than it should be. Oh, I do it all the time. But back I come gently. Oh, there I was again, out of the garden, away from my Father's house. But each time brings me closer to remembering more times the next time and the next day, and little by little by little, the more gentle I am with myself, the quicker I am to remember the next time. The harder I am on myself, the less likely I'm to wake up in that next moment, because the whip is out. And so every day we begin our spiritual life knowing that every conflict must be resolved within my consciousness. It doesn't mean I need to understand it. It doesn't mean I need to like it. It means I need to drop it and drop into the well of my God's indwelling place, which has no good or evil, has no judgment, isn't evaluating, isn't conniving. There, but for the grace of God, go I, and anything out there that is displeasing. There, but for the grace of God. And where is that grace? Right home, right here where I am, right home here. Come back, grace. Grace is always saying, approved, little one, approved. There's only one heart beating. There's only one place of grace within. We are indeed living in exciting times. And would you mind telling me when it hasn't been in the history of the evolution of man? When hasn't there been change? Huge change. When hasn't there been upheaval? When hasn't there been the uncovering and discovering and discarding of that which doesn't work toward love? Might not be going fast enough for me. Then sometimes it looks as though it's going too fast. Learning too much, getting too smart. The world looks like it's able to control all sorts of things. And I rest, and I allow, and I watch. and I pour the love of God. And when I can't, I say, God, I'm unable at this time, but I am willing to be the instrument of that love, but do not allow me to judge what the love is supposed to look like. Perhaps that love is to look like just being, just smelling the rose, just petting the cat here now. Do you think there really are enough books, enough words? Do you really think if you just think enough or are smart enough, and I'm speaking to me, not you, do you really think, Dulcie, that you can figure this out if you just think enough? No. Thank you, God, we're on a path of non-judgment, middle road, no opinions on outside issue, and anything other than silence is an outside issue. And I do not mean voidness. This is not a path of sitting in the void. This is a path of sitting in conscious awareness of the presence of God. There's no void to that. This is not a path of blissing out 1 minute and crashing the next when we enter our jobs or our homes or our family situation. This is a path of awakened, conscious awareness of the presence of God right here in the moment, regardless of what I am viewing out there in the external. If I need to reframe things, there's words I can do that let me or thee off of them, me or them off, quote, the hook of my judgment of whether that was right or wrong what they did. And I'm going to read just a couple of them because there's such a gentle way to let people off hooks, whether it's organizations, whether it's presidents, kings, or mother, or son. We let the Holy Spirit reframe what they might be doing in words such as their intent. I always have to be aware of my intent. And do I know their intent? Do I really know the intent behind the behavior or the words that came out of another person? Never. So I say things like, oh, perhaps they made a sad mistake. Could this have been a naive error? Could this overactivity have been a passion for life? Anything that I'm judging, oh, could they be duped? Was I misled? Perhaps it was just my programming or my conditioning. Perhaps it was my karmic propensity. Perhaps it was just ignorance. Perhaps it was just vulnerability that made that person behave that way. Perhaps they were being infantile, not evil, but infantile, primitive. Perhaps they were acting under social coercion or family pressure. Maybe they were just having an emotional tantrum or negative storm. Perhaps they have a personality disorder. Maybe they just have the inability to control their behavior. Maybe they're narcissistic, psychotic, psychopathic, lack education. Maybe they're intoxicated, they're driven or acting under a compulsion. They perhaps are lacking in spiritual evolution. Perhaps they're delusional, or perhaps they were simply misinformed. I'm guilty of every one of those at any given time of day or night, and so are they. So to judge all of those things as intent for evil will just help to make me brittle, close my heart down. We are living in a time of letting everyone off the hook, especially ourselves. The only enlightenment I have anything to do about is my own. Right here at this place, in this moment, it's up to me. When I can, when I have a conscious contact, when I too am not hypnotized by the distraction or attraction of the world. Distraction, attraction. There's only two things that ever take me off the path: fear or attraction. I am either enticed off or I am scared off. But the interesting thing is, this path we're on, which is trust the Christ, trust God, fear cannot get on the path, and distraction or attraction cannot get on the path. It can only entice or scare me off. So as long as I hold to here, now, God, presence. In Joel's day, we hear a lot of talk about bomb shelters. That was the scare of the world then. Whether it's bomb shelters, gas masks, bird flu, ADDs, DLSs, ABCs, SPCAs. Stay home on the path. Let go of the fear. Let go of the attraction or distraction and come home. For here is where I can go beyond judgment, beyond thoughts, beyond good and evil, and I can come home to the garden, my Father's house. And my Father's mansion has many rooms, many roads to it, so how can I possibly judge another's unfoldment, what path they choose? And so we allow more and more, day by day, little by little, allow a Dulcie to be a Dulcie, allow a cat to be a cat, a John to be a John, and know that they are and I am unfolding exactly as I can. Here now, Bergamo, May 8th, planet Earth, at 11:25. Let's go home into the